Blaine now, who has a conversation with an analyst about the recently concluded ANC NEC.
Thank you very much indeed, Des. Well, the ANC leadership has postponed all regional conferences in Gauteng scheduled for this weekend. It follows concerns around the convening of branch general meetings. The party's National Executive Committee held a special meeting at Irene outside Pretoria to reclaim its authority amid many challenges facing the party. Among the issues on discussion was the appointment of the Northwest Premier, the aborted conference in KwaZulu-Natal, and the court challenge by a disgruntled Eastern Cape group. Now, ANC members from the West Rand region picketed outside the venue, complaining about gatekeeping at branch elections ahead of the regional conference. Speaking to Morning Live earlier, ANC spokesperson Pule Mabe says the ruling party will meet today to address these issues. Now, for more on the story, we're joined by political analyst Ongama Mtimka of the Nelson Mandela University from our PE studios. Ongama, thank you very much indeed for your time. A special NEC meeting held, a plethora of challenges, I guess, facing the ANC. It's under the spotlight in various provinces. Which region, Ongama, do you think is most likely to have the most consequential repercussions?
Well, I do think that whatever happens in Northwest and KZN has got consequences, potential consequences that the ANC cannot really accept at this stage. I think there's a very high risk that whether it's the premier issue in Northwest or resolving the leadership crisis in KZN, and now Gauteng, as well as Eastern Cape and Free State. You know, all of those things happen within a context in which the new leadership need space in order to build their legitimacy and wide acceptance, first within the NEC itself, and then in the overall structures of the organization. But that happening in the aftermath of what was a very divisive succession battle doesn't aid, the new leadership. And also, we can see that the machinations that are taking place, for example, in the various provinces, say for Gauteng, really, are the are the spillovers of the pre-Nasrec political situation.
Let's pick up on the Gauteng region. A group from the West Rand accusing the region's leadership of manipulating processes ahead of, the Gauteng regional conferences. What does this say about the state of affairs in Gauteng?
Well, I don't think much about Gauteng per se, Blaine. So the ANC processes and structures are always subject to the private political ambitions of those that are running for leadership. So everybody knows that in order to win a conference, you don't realize it when votes are counted and are announced at the conference itself. The processes leading up to the conference, such as, for example, which delegates come from branches and which branches get accepted or pass audits, which ones do not, is all part of the process of attempting to manufacture the outcomes of the conference in advance. So the ANC does need to salvage itself by making sure that it ensures the process of electioneering or sort of managing elections within itself is very professional, is done with integrity, and is free from the ambitions of those that are coming from the top. Because even though it is said that power is in the branches, it's always a top-down process.
Ongama, let's talk about the province that you're in. A court action in the Eastern Cape challenging the validity of the last provincial conference. They, I understand, want the Sbu Ndebele task team report acted upon. It's understood that, I think the report recommended that the dissolution of the PEC. What do you read into this report? What do you know about it? What's your opinion on how it is likely to play out?
Well, there are those who supported current Premier Phumulo Masuale's third term bid, who still continue to feel aggrieved by the fact that the NEC failed to take a position which they thought would be accommodating to both groupings post that submission of that report. What has happened, however, is that a reshuffle has taken place within cabinet. Now, for me, I think the one question that I was asking myself is whether those that are pursuing this case currently are pursuing it for the outcomes that will result from it, or it was part of a fight back plan by a broader faction nationally to try and flex its muscle and use something which they know is a thorn in the flesh because of its potential implications on the conference outcomes of NASREC itself. So either those people were actually pushing the court process in order to ensure that they remind the NEC or they push the NEC towards finding this political solution which they said they were going to execute in the province, or those people genuinely want the court outcome in order to influence or to use it as ammunition for a broader scheme they are planning at a national level.
Let's talk about courts and the use of courts. I mean, the ANC is dealing with an aborted conference, KZN conference, which was halted via court interdict. Then there's this court action in the Eastern Cape. What's your reading into party members' use of courts and its effects on the ANC?
Well, it's part of the dynamism of a constitutional democracy. Organizations with constitutions do not only have outcomes determined by power balances within themselves, but also the legality has got to be a very crucial element of how things are done. So while it is a pain for the ANC to have courts resolve internal party disputes, it is part of the dynamism of working in a constitutional democracy that must be embraced. But obviously, it is good when the ANC commits to finding political solutions, but also follows through on those things. I mean, the Eastern Cape situation, for example, should have been followed on a long time ago, because it was, I think, about 2 months ago that the NEC said it was going to provide a political solution in the Eastern Cape, but that political solution didn't really come, except that the Premier was retained when the reshuffle took place. But it seems that the former Phumulo Masuale faction would prefer a much more thoroughgoing solution than one that retains the Premier at a premiership level in the province.
You know, I was watching the ANC Secretary General Ace Makashula yesterday, and he says the mood in the party is positive. But, you know, the party is dealing with a number of court cases. Is there, Ongama, a disconnect between what is said in public and the current mood in the ANC?
Well, two things there, Blaine. One of the things I was going to watch for this NEC is the extent to which the current leadership, especially the top six, is gaining wide acceptance within the NEC itself. And how decisions were taken in this NEC was going to show us a lot about that. And I think I quite share the view that some momentum has been gained in building some level of coherence at an NEC level, because while it has failed to take a decision on Limpopo, it has been able to take a decision with respect to KZN for continuing intervention there, to postpone the regional conferences in Gauteng, but also the intervention in the Eastern Cape in a way that sort of quells the storm that is brewing at the moment. So I agree to some extent with the fact that there is some momentum being built, at least at an NEC level. But the challenge remains going forward. for the new leadership to continue to show both the contradictory positions of cleansing the ANC of rampant corruption, while at the same time avoiding being seen as if they are purging those that supported former President Jacob Zuma.
I mean, we hear about the buzzword unity almost on a daily basis. And we do understand that unity is not an event. I guess it's a process. But do you think the ANC has time to heal before the 2019 elections?
Yeah, so that's the million-dollar question. In fact, one of the things that I was saying is it may not heal in a way that ensures coherence both at a national, provincial, and local levels. I think they may need to accept at some stage that they have got to take a decision that says there will be different power configurations at national as well as in some provinces. In Northwest, for example, it's not very clear how they can neutralize Supramahuma Pilo as well as his lieutenants in that province. And that's the case also in KZN. So they have got to accept at some stage that we will see something that looks like federalism in terms of how the ANC is run under the Ramaphosa presidency. Otherwise, what it may face if it pushes too hard is a split in the party, and that may not necessarily be good, because whether you have federalism internally where you have two parties in one, or you have a splinter party, the effect is ultimately going to be the same.
Ongama, always a pleasure having your insight on the program. That was political analyst Ongama Mtimka. The outcomes of the NEC, remember, will be communicated later on, so stay tuned to SABC News for more.